Peer support techniques. These are some of the techniques that I used in doing paid peer support work. I worked in residential services and I did a lot of group facilitation, which suited my experience as a teacher and a trainer. This suited me personally, despite the fact that in any kind of mental health service is a really challenging place to do group work. You always have the lowest priority against the medical needs of the health service, and there's a constant challenge of engaging your people. I tell people that there are 3 challenges in doing group work, and they are engagement, engagement, and engagement. I feel that I really lucked out in my service in having a manager like Chris who believed in me and could see the things that I was contributing, even which I didn't initially understand them myself. Effectively, he was able to hold the hope or the space for me when sometimes I felt like I wasn't contributing very much. He could see my strengths in things like explaining recovery to managers and auditors and explaining what a clinical community partnership can do to help people recover from my own lived experience. And that didn't seem like a great big deal to me, but it was important to him and to the service. So, I would feel down when nobody would attend my groups, feel like I was doing nothing. Whereas actually it's really vitally important that if you say you're going to run a group, you turn up and do it, even if nobody else turns up. It's keeping the faith and it's being consistent. It's having those structures and boundaries. Lived experience workers really need someone to do this. We've been told that we're broken, that we're sick, and that we're failures for so long that we believe it, and we need someone to show us that it's not true. We don't do well in hostile environments, and we carry around enough self-doubt and imposter syndrome for anybody. So I became a peer support worker. I trained. I began working with people in crisis. I began to learn a lot more about mental health. First 12 months was a massive learning curve of, what the service was about, who used it, what mental illness is, what different types of problems that people experience, what kinds of challenges and distress they experience and perform. And that also taught me things about what it takes to become well, to become whole, and led me to work on my own self-care and my own personal development, self-actualization. I did mine's 5-day peer support worker training with facilitators Robin and Paul. I found this storytelling very confronting, as with the goal-setting exercise. At the time, it was beyond me to claim and own what I wanted in life. In facilitating this training later on, I've come to realise that the fear and vulnerability is part of the process. You can't have relationships and spaces of safety, which are essential for peer support, without vulnerability and authenticity. And that is frightening. Somebody always freaks out. Somebody's always feeling uncontained. The key is to have experienced mentors who can absorb and buffer this fear, and experienced managers who can support the circle outside if necessary. Because some people will need that containment. I told my story straight up, first cab off the rank. I'm an anxious rather than confident person, but I have the skill to plunge in and fake it till you make it. I knew that if I got it done straight away, rather than waiting I'd only suffer 1 night's sleepless anxiety about it, instead of 3 or 4. So I'd rather face the fear than face the waiting. This is a double-edged strength. I don't sit well with anxiety and uncertainty, Sometimes I've made things worse for myself just so I didn't have to sit with that uncertainty. These classes are unusual in that you tell your whole mental health story. You don't normally do that in peer support. You normally are much more listening to the other person and maybe talking a little bit about some aspect of your experience. But this particular training was an immersive training where you tell your whole story. I've now done that 4 or 5 times in these classes. Each time I've had to deal with that anxiety and uncertainty. It doesn't get easier. I've even ended up, writing down my story several times. I get very disorganized when faced with my own story. It's big, it's rambling, it's complicated, it has many different aspects. I forget things, I can't connect the dots. Pieces fall off. My life isn't so much a journey or a narrative as a cloud of minnows. The tighter and more anxiously I grasp at the story, the more the minnows dart through my fingers, leaving me holding nothing but a foolish look on my face. On the other hand, my lived experience is always there. When people talk about their own feelings and experiences, some of the fish may swim closer, and I may have something to share. For me, peer support starts with listening. Listening to the person, listening to my own inner thoughts and feelings. Just listen. Hold the space for people. When I was having a psychotic break recently, drug-induced as part of my cancer journey, I called it bad dreams. And I didn't know where I was or what I was doing, and I summoned the considerable courage to buzz for a nurse and to try to rejoin the consensus reality. They didn't understand what I needed. Really, it would have been helpful to have them hold my hand and listen non-judgmentally to the odd things that I had to say. I've worked as a peer support worker for 4 years. It's a strange, paradoxical job. Sometimes it hardly seems like working at all. Some of the best work I do is walking around the block, going to the coffee shop and listening to people talk. Get people out in the sunshine. Get them talking. Catch them doing or saying something positive. Don't underestimate the humble walking group or shared cup of tea. It can do more than good than all the pills and doctors in the world sometimes. I like to practice being available, hanging around the common area of the residents, preparing food and having lunch with residents. For me, good peer support happens in the informal moments and the little spaces between meetings, groups and psychoeducation sessions. I keep myself occupied and active. Even if no one's around or no one turns up for a scheduled group, let them catch me doing something positive. That's modelling. I try to actively practice my self-care. I look after myself. I access my supports when I need them. I work on my sleep hygiene and my exercise. I share this progress at community meetings. Talking about my self-care and my challenges is another way that I can model a recovery attitude. I share this with the staff as well. If people ask how I'm going and I'm not going, okay, I will talk honestly about how I'm going. One of the most empowering things about being a peer support worker is you have permission to say, I don't know. I'm not God. I'm not a doctor. There's so much I don't know. I don't model perfection. I model vulnerability, enthusiasm, anxiety, curiosity about people, and work. I love that I can bring myself to this work. I try to think about how things feel for people, what experience people have in the system, the things people force themselves to do or say in order to get help, why people twist themselves all out of shape. My minnows help. I try to communicate some of these feelings to other staff, to speak to the feelings of mental health. Part of our job is to support people, part is to represent people to the system. Our humanity, our vulnerability, our hope and authenticity is at the base of both of these roles. Behind ourselves, there's found ourselves. Thank you.